Hi, Josh here. Today, we're working on my dad's car. To be more specific, we're repairing rust on his 300D Mercedes.
The plan.
So what we're going to do is cut out the rust and fill in the big gaping hole that we just made with steel bent so that it looks like what we cut out. Hopefully when we're done, you will never notice that there's any rust on this car.
Igor, get my wrench.
Yes, master.
So obviously the next step is to cut out said rust. Now the way I like to do it is with a grinder, either a die grinder or an angle grinder. I find a die grinder works great for those tight spots. Now the one problem with using a grinder is that you'll get a face full of grinder dust, which is really annoying. So if you can, find some poor smuck to do it. Me, I got my dad. His car. Really, you could just tell him that's like the 4th of July. All the sparks flying. Now the problem my dad is running into right now is that the piece he's trying to remove is spot welded to another piece. So he's grabbing an air chisel to cut those spot welds. This actually works great for cutting spot weld. Air chisel, I should say, works great for cutting spot welds. You don't have to. It's a lot easier than drilling them out. You just have to be careful that it doesn't wander and destroy something that's important, like a good body panel or wiring. Also, when you cut out a panel, you should try to cut out as big of a piece as possible so you have a template to reconstruct it by. We just noticed there's some cabling back there. And it's out. Next step is to fill in the gaping hole that you just created. To do this, cut out a piece of steel that's somewhat larger than what you need to fill in. Not too large that you can't work with it though. You want it larger because you'll find that your bends and stuff take up more steel than you previously thought. Just go big. Go big or go home, that's what I always say. Okay, I don't actually always say that, but it sounded good. Oh, and I was putting a kick into it because the car actually kind of bends right there. It's a little weird. Right now I'm measuring for another bend because both the side and the bottom was removed. If you can, try to make everything at one piece. Makes it look better. I think I just discovered that I measured on the wrong side. So, to make the bend, I started with a chisel hammer. It's not really a chisel hammer. It's meant for body work, but it's kind of like a chisel hammer. Anyway, I started creasing it. Then I thought, why don't I just use what the Twinkies gave me? My weight. Okay, I don't actually eat Twinkies. Ice cream, I should say. What the ice cream gave me. This actually worked out well, surprisingly. It gave me a pretty good radius, because it wasn't a perfect 90, which is what the hammer pie would have ended up giving me. Well, not a perfect 90, but a little harsher of a 90 than I would have wanted. Now she goes to show you, use what you got. If you got a good fat stomach, use it. If you got a hard head, use it. If you feel like taking some frustration out on the table, use it. No, I was actually reforming the bend because it kind of straightened up when I bent the 90. Now what I'm doing is I'm marking where the piece of steel lays on the car. This will give me a reference point so that I can measure where to cut out the excess. Basically, I'll measure the line to the hole, which is what I'm doing right now, and transfer that measurement over to the steel. And that'll give me a fairly close line to where I need to cut. Won't be perfect, but it'll be close. And when you do this, make sure you get a depth and a cross. So you want this way and this way. You want a cross measurement. Basically, what I'm trying to say. If you just try to measure off this something off the steel, it might not be perfectly level, and the measurement won't transfer over properly. Basically, it'll get messed up. I probably could have edited some of this out. Let me know if you want this shorter. I debate. So now I'm cutting it out. The metal, not the video. I'm not editing on the fly here. And this is basically the process. You cut a little, you see how it fits. You cut a little, you see how it fits. You bend it, you see how it fits. You find out you messed it up, you throw that piece out and you start over again. It's more of an art form than a science, really. Needs a little trimming. So now I'm forming a, I think that's what I'm doing. I'm forming a indent because there's a jack pad right there. Mercedes has jack pads and jack ports for some reason. I don't know. Although it is quite handy, I should say. Oh, maybe I wasn't doing that. No, I am. I'm using the chisel hammer to kind of form the line and press the steel down to make an indent. I don't know why I didn't just start with this. Actually worked rather well, even though you can't see it because my shoulder's in the way. Camera placement. Need a little bit more of a bend into it. So now that I got the general form, it's time to add a, I don't know what you call it, a 90 I guess, on the end in the wheel well. Now the problem with this is that it is bent. I need the 90 to go all the way down around the radius. Now every time I try to put the 90 or try to bend the steel into a 90, what happens is it will flatten out. So basically what I ended up doing was form the 90, bend it back into the radius, bend the 90 back in, re-bend the radius, and eventually the steel kind of coalesced together and formed, and basically it went somewhere. I really don't care where. The excess steel, that is. Basically, if you need it to, steel will bend to your will. It'll just take a while. That was my dad video bombing me again. Right now I'm using, I believe it's called a shrinker hammer. Basically a hammer with a bunch of little bumps on it to try to shrink the steel. I tried using a shrink ray, that didn't work. It made it too small to work on. Apparently you can't make it very localized. Again, arms in the way. See, eventually went. But not quite enough, apparently. Now, as I stated before, the Mercedes has these ports for a jack. It's basically a round hole. Really a round hole. Anyway, these ports are indented. Severely indented. So what I'm doing now is I'm trying to indent the steel so that it looks like the original. The way I'm doing this is I'm using a... Yeah, my dad video bombed me again. Can't work with the guy. Anyway, the way I'm doing it is with a couple pipes. One is a fitting, the other is just a normal black pipe. I'm using it kind of as a die. I'm placing the larger, believe it, yeah, it's a black coupling, I don't know the size, on a steel plate and using the pipe to hammer in to form the indent. I'm doing this on a thick chunk of steel because the table was bouncing too much. Just rounding it off a little there. Trying to make it more gradient than hard corner. Yeah, hard corner. So what I've just found out is that it was off. It was like a 1/4 inch off. So I flattened it back out and now I'm remeasuring and reforming. This will happen. Don't be afraid to undo what you just did, basically. So now it's time to weld in the piece. Now, like I said, I believe I said earlier, there are wires and tubes running in behind this body panel. So what we did is applied aluminum foil tape over this to reflect some of the heat from the weld. This prevented it from melting. What is aluminum foil tape? We use it a lot for air conditioning. It's mainly for insulation around ductwork. You might be able to find it at a hardware store. If you can't, maybe try taping aluminum foil. You want something somewhat reflective to bounce the heat off, basically. Now when you're putting in your piece, you will find that it doesn't quite fit. Unless you're really good. But if you're really good, you're probably not watching this video unless you're here to criticize. And if you are, be nice. Anyway, you just need to push it in place. Tack, tweak, tack, tweak. You may have to remove some excess material some places. Now, when you weld this in place, do not, I repeat, do not weld continuously. This will heat up the area, warping the metal. Had someone do this on my Jeep. I was not happy. It still worked, actually. It didn't want to come out. Anyway, to avoid warping, what you need to do is weld at like a quarter, maybe half an inch. Stop, jump ahead 1 to 2 inches. Start welding again, do this all the way around, and continue doing it until it's all done. You might want to take a break in between welds, so you do it, you go all the way around, take a break, let it cool, go all the way around again, take a break, let it cool. That will ensure that it won't warp. Also, to prevent starting a fire from inside, I pumped nitrogen into the channel. Now, what I did in the back, because this wasn't the only rust spot, was I just had a air gun, sprays air, to put out any fires that started in the inside, which they did. There were fires because of tar in between joints. It caught on fire, but I just used air to blow it out. I found that the best way to blow out a fire inside a body panel. Also, have a fire extinguisher on hand, but you should always have that when you weld. I've actually started fires with a welder. Also a plasma cutter. Did that a couple times too. I also started my pants on fire once with a welder. That's interesting. Would not suggest doing that. Now you'll notice I'm reaching in quite far to weld this. You want to weld as much as possible to prevent any moisture from getting in between two joints. Also, to prevent moisture from rusting, because you will get moisture in between two joints, you want to spray on a weld-through primer on the back side of the panel. This way you minimize the area of rust, the areas that rust can start, basically. So once you're done welding, you're going to need to smooth the weld. Now, what I do is I use an angle grinder with one of these. It's a flap wheel. As you can see, it's basically sandpaper. See, sandpaper. It's a little it's not as harsh as a normal grinding wheel. A normal grinding wheel, if you use that, will most likely eat through the steel. It's happened. I've had it happen before. Now, once you're done grinding it smooth, you're probably going to have some pinholes. Just go over with the welder again and smooth it back out. Now, once you're done with that, oh, before I forget, at least when I do it, I might be pushing the grinder too hard, but when I grind the weld smooth, what will happen is it won't look smooth. It'll be two black lines going along the weld. Don't try to remove it. Well, you'll eat right through the steel. Go by feel, not by looks. Now, once you're done grinding the weld smooth, what you're going to want to do is get some Bondo. Now, if you've seen my page on 610bob.com about my Jeep, you may be a bit confused. I didn't use Bondo on my Jeep because it's an off-road vehicle, and I was afraid that if a stone or something hit the Bondo, it would be more likely to have the paint chip off. But since this is a car, you want to use Bondo to make it smooth. Thin layers of Bondo. If you find yourself putting on too much Bondo, like you got a 1/4 inch of Bondo, you're doing something wrong. There's no way around it. Alright, once you get the Bondo on, you sand it smooth. I also forgot, rust. If there's any surface rust nearby, you want to treat that first. Since you're already there, yeah. Anyway, once you've done that, you prime it, you paint it, you get the car out of the garage. At least that's what I did. You may be different, but that's what I did. And now you got a de-rustified car. Wasn't that simple? It might have been simple, but it's actually can be a bit of a headache. Anyway, if you like that, my dad just got another Mercedes that had an argument with a wire guardrail. It lost. So if you want to know how to remove really deep dents, keep an eye out. You might want to subscribe. Be notified when it comes out. If you like this, hit the like button. If you have a comment, leave a comment. Just be nice. I'm looking at you, YouTubers. I've seen your comments. Oh, now I am going to get a mean comment. Anyway, some of the other things I got coming up. Tool post grinder for a lathe, air powered, under 20 bucks. That should be coming out shortly. A claw for an excavator. That should be coming out shortly. I have a bunch of other projects, but they're a bit far off. Anyway, 610Bob on Instagram and Twitter, and as I stated before, 610bob.com. Yep, that's it. Thanks. Bye.